Chosen One, I know a secret about you. I saw something happen in heaven, something they didn't tell you about. This knowledge will change everything you knew about yourself. And you absolutely cannot skip this. There was something in heaven that they didn't tell you about. You were going about your normal day when something unexpected happened. It felt like just another time. You had to push through and stand your ground when everything was against you. An event that seemed small to us on earth, but was felt in heaven like a quake when that moment came, when you stood that way, when you carried yourself with that spirit, when you had that exact mix of fire, grounding, and unwavering knowing. God was quiet, not from sadness or anger, but from something else, something that can't be named in words. The kind of awe that only God saves for the rarest things. Being in charge of all the angels in heaven and having been on the edge of impossible battles since the beginning of time, Archangel Michael turned to see what God was seeing. Michael, who has seen everything the spiritual world has to offer throughout all of history, looked at you and the way your spirit holds itself when there aren't many people around to see it. Michael has seen warriors, prophets, kings, martyrs, and intercessors carry heavy loads that broke nations. Again, Michael was truly, completely, and without a doubt stunned. Please think about that for a moment before we go any further. The archangel who has seen it all is shocked by you, by the way people in your life have been telling you to handle things, and by the fire that your problems have been trying to put out, by the refusal that is built into you from the inside out. Not giving up on being small when you refuse to put down people who are uncomfortable with what God put inside you. This message is for the chosen one who has been told their whole life that they need to be more humble, nice, tasty, and fun to be with. The person who was told they were wrong wasn't doing anything wrong. They were being something that made other people aware of their own flaws. People have called them difficult, proud, too intense, too much, hard to reach, scary, and someone who thinks they are better than everyone else. They were never willing to act like they were less than what God made them, though. The person who slowly but surely began to think that maybe everything was okay. If the fire they carry isn't a gift but a problem, it could be the thing that burns inside them and won't go out no matter what tries to put it out. If that thing is really the flaw in their character that everyone in the past kept pointing out, if only they could have more peace, success, and relationships that last, they should learn how to say no. Please pay close attention, chosen one. Being speechless in front of God was not a sin. Someone signed it. It was the sign of someone who was so in tune with who heaven wrote they were before the world was even made, that even God stopped to take it all in. Not to fix it, to keep it hard, to see it and treat it with the same respect that the Bible says God has for people whose hearts are completely His. Perfect does not mean whole. Complete means not split up. Complete means that they have the right kind of fire inside them and won't let the pressures of the world change it. The thing that people in your life have called a problem is your attitude, which is not split up. It can't be sent somewhere else. And heaven knows what that means for the kingdom and your calling. Even if the people around you can't see past how it makes them feel, I want to explain what it means to be spiritually speechless. Before we talk about the 5 things God saw in you, we don't mean that God was confused. When we say that God was speechless, there is no confusion for God. It's not that we think God didn't expect this. In the same way that people are surprised, God is not surprised. In the divine framework of how what happens on earth affects what happens in heaven, there are times when things are seen in a different way. There are times when something happens in heaven that doesn't just be acknowledged or watched over and over again. There is something that ripples and makes the people who watch from heaven take note in a way that is different from how they normally do that. Now is one of those times, your time. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or become a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our community through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you aren't just visiting a site. You are entering a community of like-minded believers. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift up the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with a family that speaks the language of faith. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping us build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give acts as living water for those in our community seeking healing and hope. Give and it will be given to you is the promise that sustains our shared mission. I invite you now to step out of the shadows and into this circle of prayer. Come with purpose. Join the conversation and plant your seed in fertile ground. Let's open the heavens together. Release your seed today. Join our community and see what God brings back into your life. That kind of ripple was caused by the way you think, and it has been building into something specific for your life. Something that has to do with the fact that God was speechless, and then there was silence. There was something in the silence that wasn't empty. Making a choice could be heard in the silence. When there was silence, something that had been waiting for you finally had a chance to come out. Let me tell you about Michael and the architecture of heaven. Knowing his part will help you understand how important it is that he was shocked. In the Bible, Michael is called one of the chief princes in the angelic realm. This title only belongs to the most senior figures and means that the person is very close to the throne. He is the warrior angel who fought the Prince of Darkness directly in the book of Daniel. It was his intervention that ended 21 days of spiritual battle and gave Daniel the answer he had been looking for. In the book of Revelation, he is called the leader of the heavenly armies and the one who will lead the final battle against the ancient enemy of God and people. Michael has been around since the beginning of time. He has seen every battle, every miracle, every moment of bravery or cowardice in people. And every time someone did what they were called to do or turned away from it, he knows what the anointing looks like when it comes out and when it goes away. He was there when events in history changed the world. These are events that we read about and events that will never be written down by humans but will be recorded in the books of heaven. Michael has seen everything. Michael was shocked by your attitude and the way you carry yourself. Not just one thing like the fire, the groundedness, or the refusal, but how those things sit together in a way that heaven doesn't seem to see very often because being called a chosen one doesn't happen very often. A lot are called. Rare is the person who keeps answering the call at the same speed and volume that you do. Someone who won't negotiate with diminishment no matter who offers the deal is pretty rare. What is rare is the attitude that God couldn't say anything, and you have that attitude. We are going to talk about 5 specific things that show up in your attitude. There were 5 things that God saw in you that, taken together, made the moment that changed something about the plan God had for your life. We're also going to break down each quality and explain what it means for the present season because not being able to speak wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of something new. And the chapter that starts after God can't say anything about a chosen one is not a quiet one. This chapter is not a nice one. They've been building up to this part of their life for a long time. You have been told different things about yourself than what God saw in you. But stay with me. When you know what heaven really wrote, the story you've been telling yourself about your attitude, your fire, and the thing that makes you too much for some rooms will change in a way that can't be changed back. Before we talk about the 5 qualities, I need to make a direct point. Some of you who are watching this right now have had a part of your attitude used against you. In relationships, people have called your fiery personality controlling. In families, refusing to give up was called selfish. At work, your high standards were called tough. And in churches or communities, your deep desire to know God was called prideful, performative, or untrustworthy. Those words hurt you. Maybe they are right. Maybe I should soften. Maybe the way I am is actually the problem. They have put a layer of doubt between you and the full experience of what God put inside you. I'm not here to tell you that you have always done the right thing. We haven't all done it. But I'm here to tell you that what you believe at your core, the part of you that God saw and couldn't say anything about, is not the problem. It was never a problem. The problem is that the world hasn't yet come up with a word to describe what you are. And some people couldn't stand what your existence showed them about how far away they are from where God wants them to be. I'm going to call your refusal of false flaws the first trait that God saw in you. At different times in their lives, each chosen one is given what looks like a place to rest. A place that is close enough to what they dreamed of and familiar enough to make their hunger seem unreasonable. People in their community are proud of them for reaching a certain level of success. They are in a relationship that meets enough of the requirements that wanting more makes them feel ungrateful. They are fulfilling their calling in a way that gets them into the rooms they are allowed to be in. And because the people you love want you to stop climbing, there is a lot of pressure to see this level as the end goal instead of a stop along the way. They don't hate you. It's just that seeing you climb makes them remember why they stopped. Because the floor they made peace with was the ceiling you are pressing against, and they need you to be okay with it too. When you say no, you give them a possibility that makes them feel uncomfortable. Because of this, the pressure they put on you to stop is usually very strong and comes from people who care about you, are smart or love you but can't follow where you are going. You turn down every false flaw they offered you. You won't be happy with a destination you weren't meant for because of something inside you that God wrote before you were born. This isn't because you're not thankful. You're not tired or you don't feel the weight of the climb or the loneliness of being on a level that few people can see or understand. It's because that part of you knows what it was made for and can't be argued or guilted out of that knowing. There have been times when you sat in a room where someone else would have been happy to stay forever and felt stuck because you know, without being able to fully explain it, that this is not where you are supposed to land, that this is a waypoint and not a destination, that the thing you are hungry for is ahead of you and requires you to keep moving toward it even when it's hard to move and you can't see the destination yet. You've gone down false floors that other people would have had to crawl to get to. You've left comfortable plateaus in your career, your relationships, and your spiritual life, and each time, people who didn't understand why what seemed like enough wasn't enough for you talked badly about you. Heaven kept track of every refusal. God saw every time you turned down the version of your life that was almost right but not quite right. All of those moments spread out over the years of your life shaped your attitude in a way that led to the moment that left God speechless. The second thing God saw is what I'm calling the fire that doesn't need an audience. People have two types of fire inside them. The first kind burns when someone looks at it. Yes, it roars when there's praise too. When someone is praised, when everyone is paying attention, when feedback is good, and when metrics are moving in the right direction, the fire is real while it's going. It is not a fake. It's natural, human, and right. But it needs fuel from somewhere else. When the crowd leaves, it goes dark. When the recognition stops, it gets smaller to keep burning at full power. It needs confirmation from the outside world. Because of this, its output is linked to the environment and goes up and down depending on how much the outside world responds to it. A lot of fires are like this. While it's not embarrassing, it's also not so bad that God can't say a word about it. The second kind of fire goes out when no one is around, after the cheers have stopped and the room is quiet. The season of fame has ended and the season of obscurity has begun. If the work is being done in the hidden year, the in-between time, or the stretch of preparation that doesn't look like anything from the outside, if the community isn't celebrating the calling, if there isn't much proof of progress, if the timeline is long and if the fire could very easily go out but doesn't, then the work isn't done. It doesn't even dim. It stays the same temperature day or night. This is the fire that God sees and can't take his eyes off of. This is the fire you carry. There were times when there was no reason for you to keep burning. For long periods of time, you had nothing to show for your hard work. But you kept growing, showing up, and applying yourself to your calling. There was no proof that it worked. There was no important point that proved the direction. The fire did not go out. It wouldn't let go. Not because you are great or because it was easy to be quiet, but what's burning inside you isn't made by you. It comes from somewhere that isn't affected by what's going on outside. God can see where it comes from. It's something only God knows. And heaven takes notice in a way that normal faithfulness doesn't when a chosen one carries that kind of fire. Another thing God saw in you was this second quality. Not just that you care a lot while things are going well. A lot of people are excited. There is a lot of passion that runs when things are going well, but that you are on fire in the quiet, in the hidden, and in the times when passion doesn't pay off right away. Where the cost of continuing is high and the reward of stopping is immediate relief. That doesn't happen very often, but God saw it in you and kept seeing it even though there wasn't any outside confirmation during times that should have worn it down. And something about seeing it led to part of the moment when he couldn't speak. The third quality is the one that people around chosen ones most often get wrong. In my language, I call it the weight-bearing posture. Certain people carry things, not just general problems or the normal trials that come with living, but specific, heavy, unfair, and unfairly disproportionate burdens that came into their lives. Not because they earned them, but because of who they are, and because the enemy of their calling saw them as a threat early on and started putting pressure on them in a specific way. You can feel these burdens. They're not metaphors. They are pressures on money that came at the worst possible time and in the worst possible amount. Losses in relationships that happened right when people needed each other the most and the foundation felt weakest. Health, opportunity, and timing setbacks that looked like they were caused by war rather than chance. The kind of trouble that doesn't just happen to you, but seems to know exactly where you are weak and how to put the most pressure on you with the most accuracy. And the chosen one who carries these things with a certain posture. Not one that acts like they aren't heavy, or one that shows off their strength for people watching to see if they will fall. That posture is seen in heaven more than anything else. It's the posture of carrying them while still moving forward, pressing toward the calling, showing up in the morning and doing the next thing, refusing to let the weight determine the direction or the destination, since it's not performance. It's not possible to fake the weight-bearing position. Either the weight is really on you and you are moving while carrying it, or you are pretending to do something that isn't real. And the people in heaven can tell the difference more clearly than anyone else. God has seen how heavy it is on you. God hasn't been blind to it, pulling his eyes away from it, or holding off relief because it's not ready yet, or because you haven't been good enough to deserve it. God has seen your posture, how you've carried what was put on you, and how you've kept going even though the load wasn't fair, wasn't proportional, and wasn't something you did anything to earn. He has seen how your spine has stayed straight, your direction has stayed true, and your purpose hasn't been redirected by the pressure. The third thing about your attitude that led to the moment that left God speechless was the way you carried your weight while still moving toward your destiny in these messages. We sometimes go through the qualities so quickly that we don't give them time to land where they need to. That's why I want to take a moment to ask you something. Have you ever been told that you were doing a good job with something when you weren't sure? Someone may have looked at how you were living your life and said, "I don't know how you do it." What if you told them you weren't sure you were doing it at all? You were still here, still moving, and still wouldn't stop, even though it would have been nice to stop. That's the posture for bearing weight. God saw exactly what you said. The "I'm not sure I'm doing it, but I'm doing it anyway" is what heaven sees and records as one of the deepest expressions of what it means to be a chosen one in the real, unfiltered circumstances of their calling. Because faith that knows it is winning isn't something that only a few people have. What's the rarest kind of faith? Faith that doesn't know yet, but keeps moving forward anyway, even though there isn't enough evidence to make moving forward seem reasonable. That's your faith. That's how you stand. That's the third thing that made God and Michael watch in silence that was louder than any words. The fourth thing God saw about your attitude is what I'll call the sound of your yes. Well, it's not what you say yes to, but how you say it. When someone you choose says yes, even though they know it will cost them, that yes has a certain quality to it. It's not the yes of someone who doesn't know what they're agreeing to. It's not the enthusiastic yes of someone who hasn't felt the weight of the calling yet. This is the yes of someone who knows, who has been on the journey long enough to know that saying yes to God means agreeing to things that won't always feel like blessings at the time they happen. Yes to the trimming. The planning that looks like it will take longer than expected, the fire that refines without a reason, the waiting room that doesn't say when it will end, and the doors that shut just as the important doors open. That yes carries a lot of weight, and you keep saying it even though you know you won't get immediate relief, an explanation, or a reward. You have said yes to it when it would have been easier and more socially acceptable to say no. It was hard for the people around you to understand why you said yes. From the outside, the path your yes meant you would take looked like a step back. From the outside, it looked like a waste of time. It looked like you were giving up things that a wise person would have kept. The yes still came because the fact that you know this is the right path is stronger than the logic that says something else is better. Because how you feel about God is not something you decide after looking at all the evidence. It's just the way you are. God heard that yes over and over again. In the spiritual world, there is something special about the way a chosen one says yes. Someone who has been chosen knows what they are saying, has felt the cost, and still said yes. Their yes is not naive, it is chosen. Their obedience is not automatic, it is chosen. This sends a different signal to the heavenly realm than the normal signal of human faithfulness along the whole path of your life. God has been getting that signal from you. It was easy to say yes sometimes, and it cost you something real and visible other times. During the years when saying yes bore fruit that other people could see, and the years when it led to hidden growth that no one could understand or celebrate, the moment that left God speechless was built by your yes coming back over and over again. It's not that you've never wavered. But even when you were doubting and asking questions, the yes always came back. And that's one of the most important things about how strong your faith is. The fifth quality is the one I want to talk about for the longest time because it is the one that's hardest to see from the outside, but tells heaven the most about who a chosen one is and what they are ready for. I call it protecting what God put in you. Everyone who has been chosen has a special gift from God that was there when they were born. Something unique about their gifts, perspective, abilities, and vision that can't be found anywhere else in the world. It's not about being better than other people. It's about being given a specific task. Everyone carries something from God, but the chosen one carries something that is especially important to the purposes of the kingdom in their generation, in their sphere of influence, and in the specific task that no one else can do in the same way they can. The person who is against you on that assignment knows everything about you. It has not been random that you've been under a lot of stress and had attacks on your peace, your identity, and your faith in what you carry. It has been aimed at the attack on your self-worth and your ability to believe that what God put inside you is real, important, and required. They are attacking your ability to trust yourself, your judgment, and the voice of God that speaks to you. They want you to let go of what was put inside you and believe that what you carry is not valuable enough to protect. They want you to think that the thing that is burning inside you is too small, too unrealistic, too cocky, or too much to take seriously. In any case, you have protected it, though not perfectly. There were times when the attack worked and your light went out. There have been times when you doubted so much that the gift stopped working, the vision became cloudy, and the calling felt more like a wound than a rule. There were times when you weren't sure if the thing God put inside you was still there. There were times when the stillness inside you where the fire used to be felt more like absence than rest. It came back though, and you went back to it. And the thing that God put inside of you has been through every attack that was meant to destroy it. Right now, it's still inside you, still burning, still whole, and still focused on the job it was put there to do. The fifth thing that God saw about your attitude that he couldn't keep quiet about was how you've kept what God put in you alive. Even though it has been met with specific and long-lasting opposition throughout your life, it's not a small thing that something was put inside you before you were born and has been attacked from all sides since you were old enough to carry it. It's still burning inside you right now. That is the proof of a chosen one who has been true to something they couldn't always explain or see but wouldn't give up. As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself. Jesus says this is not history. It is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. Let us now talk about what took place during the quiet time. Because God not being able to speak is more than just something God saw, it shows that God made that choice. When something is seen at that level, there is a response in the divine economy, and the response is not just among God's own people. It sends waves outward. It makes a decree or decision in the court of heaven about what is now free, open, and ready to move in the life of the person who made God react in that way. God didn't forget about you and move on to something else. The silence was the first step. The life you've been living is on one side of the threshold. The times when things are getting ready, fighting, waiting, and building in secret places. The seasons of carrying what you carry without being told you've arrived. Without outside proof that you're going in the right direction. And without the crowd's cheers or the room's approval. The chapter that all of that got you ready for is on the other side of the threshold. The chapter where the 5 traits of your attitude were laid out. And God's silence, the moment when God couldn't say anything about who you are, was like the door between those 2 chapters opening. It's important that you know what this really means. The decree that was made in the silence, which Michael and God both saw, is a decree of freedom. What was held back for planning purposes is now ready to be used. What has been growing in the hidden season is now coming out to the light. What you've been holding on to as a possibility, a promise, or a blueprint is now coming true. The gifts that have been working in you below the surface are now coming to the surface. Heaven has been setting up connections, and they can now come through. Opportunities that have been building up in the background of your life are now ready to show up. You couldn't see or explain them, but you knew they were there. These dates are not vague ideas about the future that you will have to wait 10 years for. It's the time of year you're entering. The shift is not going to happen. The change has already begun. The decree was made public, and you are now living in the area that it allowed. When God is moved to speechlessness over a chosen one, that person starts living the life that they were always meant to live, and there are no blanks on your blueprint. There was a season, a refusal of false flaws, a fire in the dark, a weight that was carried forward, a yes spoken into uncertainty, and protection of what God put in you. All of these things added to the plan that heaven is now reading in full. There is a difference between seeing something and testifying about it. So, let me tell you what Michael said. A witness sees something, and a testifier writes down what they saw. Michael, who was amazed by what he saw in you, wrote down in heaven's record about the chosen one who had the 5 qualities that made God speechless. What Michael said is also not a general statement about the spiritual state of chosen ones as a group. It's very clear. It's about you, your unique attitude, and the way that things in your life are put together in a certain way. Michael said that the chosen one turned down every false floor that was offered to them and kept pushing toward the level with their name written on it. Michael said that this chosen one had fire that didn't need an audience and burned at the same temperature in the hidden seasons as it did in the visible ones. Michael said that the person who was chosen carried their weight in a way that didn't let the weight change direction. Michael said that this chosen one said yes when it would have been easier to say no in times when saying yes meant paying something and seeing something good in return. Michael also said that this chosen one kept what God put in them safe, not always perfectly, but always in the face of opposition that was meant to make them give up. Then Michael said something else, something that goes beyond the 5 qualities and talks about what those qualities, taken together, say about how ready this chosen one is for the new chapter. Michael said in court that this is a ready vessel, that all the planning is done, that the shaping that has been going on in the hidden seasons has made something that can now be used for what it was made for, that the chosen one who got this particular answer from God is no longer in the waiting room. The waiting area is now ready. The door is open. The next chapter has also been given the green light. I want to make sure you know what Michael meant when he talked about being ready and prepared. Because one of the most common feelings chosen ones have in the months before their breakthrough is they are not ready. Any sense that something is still missing, something that needs to grow more. There is a gap between where they are now and where they need to be before they can fully step into what they were called to do. This feeling is not a sign that you are not ready. The evidence is almost always for something else. That shows the difference between what a chosen person who has been through the furnace feels on the inside and what they actually look like on the outside. You can feel the heat inside the furnace. You can feel the stress. You can feel how limited your situation is, what the season can and cannot do, the things you're not doing that you could be doing to the best of your ability. There is, however, a difference between what you can see from the outside and what you can see from the inside. And what heaven sees from the outside of your furnace is not how hot it is inside, it's what the process led to. The quality of what is being made and how well it is being prepared from the point of view of heaven. From the point of view of someone who has seen preparations happen throughout all of human history, Michael said that the formation is complete. You're all set. Now, I need to talk to you about something that ties the spiritual reality we've been talking about to a useful tool that I think is directly related to the new chapter in your life. Because the decree that was made in heaven when God couldn't speak is one that brings potential into manifestation. And what I want to talk about is a physiological aspect of that manifestation right now. Because God uses both spiritual and natural things to do his work. And the natural brain is one of the main ways that a chosen one's gifts, calling, and vision are shown to the world. Neurosurgeon Dr. Daniel Barron works in New York City. Years of research have shown that there is a big difference between what the brain can do and what most adults actually use every day. He has found that it is possible for what he calls whole brain activation, which means using both sides of the brain at the same time with the left and right sides working together instead of switching places. Almost all children have this ability. Studies have shown that this mode of full brain genius is naturally used by 98% of young children. In this state, the whole brain is active, which makes it easy to be creative, intuitive, see patterns, and hold on to many complex ideas at once and put them together to make something new. But something changes when a person becomes an adult. The demands of school, social conformity, and performance-based environments that reward left brain analytical thinking and punish right brain intuitive thinking all work together to make the range of brain activity that most adults can use smaller and smaller over time. As an adult, less than 1 in 1,000 people can still naturally get to the state of full brain activation that 98% of children lived in. And when they get too narrow, they lose more than just cognitive function. They lose access to the gifts God gave them, the intuition that knows without being able to fully explain, the creative synthesis that sees connections that other people miss, and the ability to have a clear picture of the future and work backwards from it. These gifts are not just spiritual, they are also parts of the brain that God made to carry those gifts. Barron created the 8-minute daily audio program called the Genius Switch. It uses a technology called neural sync technology to wake up both sides of the brain at the same time through headphones. The technology sends certain sound frequencies that help the brain get back to a state of whole brain activation. This method is based on the Nobel Prize-winning work of Dr. Roger Sperry in 1981, which showed how the two hemispheres of the brain are functionally different and how important it is for them to work together. Based on that, Dr. Barron and his team made a protocol that anyone can use every day for 8 minutes to get into the state of mind that God intended for the brain to work in. What this means for a chosen one in this new season is important, because the decree of release that God made when he couldn't speak isn't just a spiritual event. It is an order for you to fully use everything that was put inside you, and to fully activate everything that was put inside you. You have to fully activate the tool that you use to express those things. The brain plays that part. If you are going into the most important part of your life with a brain that isn't working at its full potential like most adults' brains are, you are going into that part of your life with the main instrument not working at full capacity. That's what the Genius Switch does. As promised, the link to it is in the text below. Let me tell you what some people went through when they started using the Genius Switch regularly. Testimonials are one way that God confirms the tools he has set up for his people. Lisa is a businesswoman who has had a dream for a company for many years. She knew what she was supposed to build. She had the plan in her head, but each time she tried to put the vision into action, something in her mind felt fuzzy. It was like she could see where she wanted to go, but not how to get there. After 8 days of using the Genius Switch every day, she said the fog lifted. This time it was a real fog. She sat down to work on the business plan and got clarity that she hadn't had in years during a 3-hour session that didn't make her tired. It was like a part of her brain that she hadn't used in a long time came back online. Matthew is a man who works in the church. He had the gifts, he was meant to do it. He had trained for years, and people in his community believed in him. But when he stood up to preach or teach, what he said was never as deep as what he really understood about the subject. He could feel the depth, but sometimes he couldn't get to it right away. The next time he spoke, 3 weeks after using the Genius Switch, he said it was the first time in years that what he said matched what was in him when he needed it most. He suddenly had access to his own depth and could get back the insight and wisdom he had been building up over the years. This is what activating the whole brain does for someone who has been doing the work to get ready. It doesn't make something that isn't there. It lets you get to things that are already there. The link to find out more is in the text. Now, I'd like to end this message by talking about something that goes along with everything we've talked about today. There is something at the heart of the 5 qualities we talked about and what it means. God did not say anything, and Michael was shocked. That thing is who you are, not identity as a spiritual idea in general. Identity is the fact that you are who God made you to be and that you were put on this earth to carry out and do things. Identity substitution is one of the main ways that chosen ones are hurt, not the crude method of trying to turn you into a bad person with someone who feels the way you do about God. That doesn't work very often. The more effective strategy is more subtle. It is trying to get you to replace your real identity with a slightly smaller version of yourself. It wants you to become a person who fits better in the places you are, with the people you know, and with the people who have power over you. A version that is still good, true, and truly you in many ways, but that has agreed to the false flaws, turned down the fire to a socially acceptable level. and change the attitude that left God speechless into something that makes the room more comfortable. But you don't get to say everything that the original you wanted to say. This is the substitution, and it happens slowly over years through thousands of small fixes, adjustments, and accommodations. Eventually, you are still yourself, but a smaller version that has been changed by the tastes of people who were never meant to write your identity. And the reason God couldn't say anything about your attitude is because it has resisted this substitution. It hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been easy. And there have been times when the substitution won and the original went quiet. But it hasn't been able to replace the most important part of who you are, the unique thing that made. The original is still with you. The original is what God is seeing in heaven. Michael spoke about the original in court. God couldn't say anything about the original. I'd like to tell you about Ellie. Ellie was told she was too much for most of her adult life. People said she was too religious, too clear on her goals, too unwilling to lower her standards in relationships, and too picky about which rooms she filled with her energy. Some of this correction stuck with her. Not all of it, but enough that she calmed down in ways that the people who knew her best could see. She learned to act like a smaller version of herself than she really was. And she did it so often that she started to think it was real. She had almost forgotten that there was a bigger version below the smaller one because it had become the default. Ellie didn't expect something to happen when she started using the genius switch every day. She told me that by the second week, she was getting clear on more than just her work, her strategy, and the next practical step she needed to take. She began to understand herself more clearly, separating the person she really was from the person she had learned to be. She became aware of the difference between the version of herself that was performing and the version that was still there intact at the original temperature, waiting to be allowed to function again. She said it was like the activation of the whole brain, the left and right hemispheres working in coordination the way they were designed to give her access to parts of herself she had been operating without for years. Parts that carry the knowing, the intuition, the depth, the fire. Parts that she had been told were problematic, parts that were actually the original. When she stopped managing those parts and started operating from them, the attitude that people had always called too much started generating a completely different kind of result. Not because the attitude changed, but because she stopped trying to fit the original into spaces sized for the reduced version. Within 6 months, Ellie had rebuilt the primary relationship in her professional life on entirely different terms. She had reconnected with the vision she had been carrying for her work and moved on 3 initiatives that had been stalled for 2 years. And the people who had told her she was too much either found a way to honor what she carried, or she found the grace to release them with love, not with bitterness, with clarity. That is what the full activation of a chosen one looks like. Not more aggression, more clarity, more access to the original, more ability to operate from the version of yourself that God went speechless about. The link to the Genius Switch is in the description below. Try it for yourself and see what clarity becomes available to you when the instrument God designed is running at the capacity He designed it for. Before we close, I want to speak directly to what this message was for. This message was not for you to feel good about yourself for the next few hours. It was for you to shift the story you carry about your attitude. Because the story most chosen ones carry about the qualities that make them who they are is a story written largely by people who could not understand what they were seeing, who looked at the fire and called it dangerous, who looked at the refusal of false flaws and called it ingratitude, who looked at the weight-bearing posture and told you to put the weight down and just be normal for once, who heard the sound of your yes and told you that what you were saying yes to was too risky, too ambitious, too far from where you currently are to be a realistic destination. And that story, repeated often enough, absorbed deeply enough, starts to feel like the true story, starts to feel like an accurate description of who you are and what you are allowed to want and how much of the fire you are permitted to carry without apology. But it is not the true story. The true story is the one that God recorded, the one that Michael testified about, the one written before you were born and confirmed by every quality of your attitude across the full arc of your life. The true story says that the attitude that left God speechless is not a problem to be managed, it is a gift to be deployed. It is the specific signature of the chosen one who is now entering the chapter that all of the preparation was for, and the chapter requires the original, not the edited version. The chapter requires the attitude that God went speechless about, not the version that has been softened to fit into spaces that were never meant to be your final destination. The chapter is open. The decree has been issued in heaven, and Michael has testified to it. The door between the preparation and the manifestation is no longer closed. And the question for you now is not whether you are ready, because Michael already testified that you are. The question is whether you are willing to walk through the door as the version of yourself that God went speechless about, as the chosen one who refuses false flaws, who keeps fire burning without an audience, who bears weight without letting it redirect the direction, whose yes comes even in the dark, who protects what God placed in them. That is who is being called through. If this message confirmed something in you today, something you already knew but needed to hear in this form, I want to ask you to drop "I see it" in the comments below, not as a ritual, as a declaration. A declaration that you see what God saw, that you accept the testimony that Michael gave, that you are willing to walk through the door as the original rather than the reduced version. The people in those comments are your people, the ones who also refused the false flaws, the ones who also kept the fire burning in the dark. You are going to recognize each other. You were never supposed to do this alone. If someone in your life has been carrying the 5 qualities we talked about today, someone who has been told their whole life that they are too much, share this message with them. You might be the instrument through which God reaches them today, and that is a significant thing to get to participate in. Like this message if it found you at exactly the right moment. Subscribe so that the next message meant for you reaches you when it arrives, and when it comes to the full activation of what God placed in you, go to the link in the description. The Genius Switch, 8 minutes a day. Walk into this chapter with everything working. Chosen one, God went speechless. Michael was stunned, and the silence that followed was not absence. It was preparation completing. It was a decree being issued. It was the door opening that has been waiting for the fullness of who you are. The door is open now. Walk through it as who you are, all of it. The fire and the refusal and the weight-bearing posture and the yes that comes in the dark and the thing God placed in you that survived everything that tried to take it. I will see you in the next message. You are about to enter your divine future, but remember, this breakthrough is not for you alone. Your testimony is the bridge someone else will use to reach their own miracle. Archangel Michael is inviting you to visit our community through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. By joining our like-minded community, you are no longer praying in isolation. You are adding your voice to a global sanctuary where we discuss the word daily and stand in the gap for one another. This is not poetry when Jesus says give and heaven will open over you on this platform. Every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and a hedge of safety for your family. Now is your time. Step into our community prayer wall, share your heart, and as you give, watch God multiply what you let go of. Let's finish this journey together. Visit our community now. Join the family and see your heavens open. Before we get to the end of this powerful story, let's reflect on this deep truth. You did not find this message by accident. This is a divine appointment meant specifically for you. You are being invited into a protected, faith-filled community at the link in the description and pinned comment. A place where divine abundance is not just a hope but a promise built on the Word. By heading to the site right now, you are unlocking access to a sacred community of like-minded believers. When you join our membership tiers, you gain immediate entry to powerful content, daily devotions, and divine insights that are hidden from the world. This is your chance to enter a sanctuary where you will receive spiritual guidance, unwavering support on our prayer wall, and speedy progress toward your destiny. Do not let this moment of destiny pass by you. Your breakthrough is waiting. Join our inner circle through the exclusive link in the description. This is how you guarantee you never miss the personalized messages and spiritual warfare tools meant to elevate your life. If you feel called to deepen your connection, the link is waiting for you in both the pinned comment and the description. For those who want to amplify this work and carry the light home, you can find our guided ebooks and Bibles in the pinned comment. Whether you join as a member or sow a seed through our resources, your presence and energy change